Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of America's Voices. We are so glad to have you here. We are bringing Americans together from across the political spectrum to go underneath the current topics to discuss what matters. Now more than ever, we need grassroots conversation in an open and respectful dialogue. And we have some new guests joining us today. We are so excited to have them here. We are going to go around and introduce ourselves and share what our political affiliation is and what topics we wanted to discuss today. So my name is Daniella Bloom. I am Ellie's premier relationship authority and dating expert. And I'm bringing what I know with relationships, what makes or breaks them, to what is making and breaking our country. So let's get started. Who would like to go first? David, I'm so glad you volunteered. Shalom.
Perfect. I'm representing the left as a proud Democrat. Honestly, it has been a crazy week. I can't remember. It feels like, once again, a lifetime was a week ago. So I'm whatever you want to discuss, I'm fresh for the moment.
Sure. I'm Yuval. I'm on the center right, mostly libertarian.
Shirley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Shirley, and I actually run a group called Politically Incorrect.
Yes. Well, thank you, Shirley. Thank you for staying up with us all the way from the East Coast. We are so happy to have you. Mark.
Thank you.
Oh, Mark. Hi, this is Mark. I'm in Las Vegas, and I'm pretty well right in most of my beliefs, a little bit social democrat every once in a while. I do believe that if Cuomo pulls this off and gets away with it, they'll be giving him the Oscar.
There's always a chance to upgrade. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I know. Lot to talk about with that. We can compare governors, right? Newsom to Cuomo. We can do that. And Joel, welcome to America's Voices.
Hey. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So my name is Joel Patrick. I am a lifelong Democrat. 2016 was actually the first time I ever voted Republican. But I don't consider myself a Republican, to be honest with you. I think that the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, I'm tired of both of them. I'm hoping that we can form some type of new party. I would say that my political views are leaning more to the right, even though all of my life I've considered myself more of a centrist, but the political landscape has changed so much, just kind of find myself on this side that they call the right. So, yeah. So now I've got my big American, well, this is a virtual flag in back of me here. So yeah.
Love it.
That's a little bit about me. Oh, and I have a channel called Project America.
Yes.
Where that's how we met, because I'm production is my background. So when all the rioting started happening last year, I felt like, you know what, I got to come out and I got to do something and let people know that America isn't this terrible place that they're making it out to be. So
yes, well, I am so glad it worked out tonight, Joel, that you're here. You're going to offer a lot of value and perspective to a lot of listeners. And then my own blurb, I was center-left Democrat until, again, 2016, when I moved back to California. I started to walk on over to the center-right side. A lot of issues, social issues, I do tend to be more Democrat-leading, but I've become a very, very proud patriot. I would not define myself under Democrat or Republican terms. I, too, want to see a different direction in this country that actually celebrates the greatness of America without throwing out the baby with the bathwater as we go through the changes that we want to see. So the other thing I want to talk about, which I wanted to bring up earlier, and because it's also a real thing, and I know that some of us have experienced it firsthand. I got dumped this week by a very good friend of mine who David knows, and basically I got a text from him that says he never wants to speak to me again because of a recent TikTok video I did, which I think many of you saw it. I was basically saying, I was doing a Britney Spears song as a TikTok to Trump getting acquitted again. And I said to him, you're going to throw away an 18-year friendship because we disagree on politically. How do you not remember the person? Like, we can disagree politically and still not end a long-term friendship. And unfortunately, he couldn't do that. And I know that this has happened to Yuval, and I know it's happened to several of my friends where people you've gone to school with, you've broken bread with, you've traveled with, you've gone through experiences with, they can't see past your differences of opinion in today's politics. And this is what I was telling you earlier, David, how much I appreciate you, because, although we don't agree on many things, there's such a level of openness and respect from you that I don't think I would get a text from you. I mean, I don't know yet. Maybe you'll do this tonight, but you never want to talk to me again because we don't see eye to eye on politics. So I wanted to know, before we get into the headlines, because this was, pretty fresh in my mind, if anyone wanted to share about that, if they had a personal experience of being dumped by a good friend or family member today. And of course, David, I want your thoughts as well.
I will say there's very few people that I've cut off, which I think if you see on Facebook, people are more surprised that I haven't cut them off yet. Mm-hmm. And I look at, as long as people could be respectful, stay away from insults, come at it with, I'll say at least an ounce of intelligence, then I'd rather have the discussion than not. I think when people just start parroting talking points without thought, without going and take on values that I don't see that are positive, then I honestly don't have a problem writing them off. But usually, I think that instinct of having, if people can make their argument and it's based on something that I could get behind, that there's a reason, then I want to have a dialogue. Yeah,
I think, when I interact with people on my page, I'm amazed how, if we have a difference of opinion, how often it converts to personal attack. So it's like it's hard to stay on the issue because then you're attacked personally, and then there's no going anywhere with that. So,
right. It's very easy to devolve quickly into you suck.
Yeah. Or I wish it was just that. Oh my God, the names I've been called.
I've had people, I've had people online saying I should die, move out of the country. And I'm not taking a very progressive left wing crazy place. I'm coming with, here's a piece of logic that I'm bringing up, and it'd be like, screw you, you should die. And you're like, that's a little much, right?
It's just, and then to be called a racist, a Nazi, it's, a supporter of fascism, and then wishing ill will on your personal family. It's just, I can't believe the depths that people go today when they are not agreed with. And, it doesn't help anybody. It just things to amplify the problems. And I really, I went on some pages today, like I went into other territories, the places I wouldn't have gone, to invite people to the show. And some people were very much like you, David, really open and curious and like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. And other people were not. And even when you're trying to give an invitation, people are just looking for an in to hit you over the head with it. So would anyone else like to share a personal story? Because I know that it's happening a lot, and I didn't know if someone was comfortable. And we can go at the end of the call and see if you want to keep this part of the call in or not.
Well, you mentioned that, I had the same exact experience, and we actually exchanged screenshots of the interactions, and we're very surprised that our interaction with the people who dumped us is literally identical. I mean, they almost use the same lingo. How do you say?
Lingo, language.
Lingo. Almost, same lingo. He wrote that I am delusional,
Mhm.
and pretty much we need a break, and he has nothing else to talk to me anymore ever. We're talking about somebody that I have been friends with for 19 years from university.
Mhm.
We've been in touch on a weekly basis. He lives out of state. Many times he came over, visited me in California. I hosted him in my home. We had back and forth relationship for a long time. He lives in a Republican state, so with not too many Jewish people. So I sent him Hamantashes on Purim, and I sent him all kind of Jewish foods because he loves Jewish foods. I'm still going to send him Hamantashes this Purim as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Good for you.
but yeah, but basically he just decided that the fact that I was happy that that the fact that I voted again for Trump, that was kind of the straw that broke his back.
It's hard for some
Um,
people to separate. Yeah.
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 Um,
Well,
I think we've all had these experiences. And when I look at the cancel culture, I go back maybe 15 years to bullying on the internet, which was very common because people were one step removed and they can bully you from behind a computer. The cancel culture is nothing more than bullying at the next level. And those people who may or may not have the courage to do it to your face are now doing it behind their screens. Okay. And I think it's a bit of cowardice.
Mhm.
Cancel culture, bullying, all is a form of cowardice. They're not confronting you and your opinion. They're just saying, you're an asshole, you're canceled.
Yeah. And it doesn't resolve anything. And it's not like they even want the apology for the grace and the
Right.
opportunity
I mean,
to connect.
I will say there's, Mark, you alluded to it, but there's the safety of the distance of being on a computer where the amount of vitriol, if you were in the room with somebody, nobody would ever say these things.
Yeah.
The modem of respect and decency go away really quickly on a keyboard.
But, and you can understand that when it comes from a stranger, but even people you know, just, it's like they don't know you at all of a sudden. They just
No,
you into a
right. I mean, I've gotten
yeah.
political debates with other parents. I mean, this is not how somebody would talk on the asphalt of the elementary school,
Mhm.
but because they don't have to look at you, they'll be happy to call you every name in the book and tell you how much big of an idiot you are. But if you see them in person, you'll probably get a hug, a handshake, and a
I don't know.
mug.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I would get a hug and a handshake if I wore a Trump hat. But yeah, no, it's true. It's true, and it's not going away. We can still hide behind our computers, but people still have to live with their own words and their own choices, and to even just bring a sense of consciousness back, because words are very powerful, and even if you can get away with it, it's just disgusting to personalize and to attack and to lose friendships over it. The article I wrote for David's newspaper, the upcoming Seder, delight or dread, you have to be in the same room with people sometimes that you just completely disagree with, but you don't just cross them off your list. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point, you mentioned the Seder. I often find myself feeling disconnected from family members because, I live in a Black household, right? So I wouldn't say that it's extremely liberal, but I don't have a family full of Trump supporters, right? I voted for Trump for the first time. Mm-hmm. Me and my mother did. I think that we're probably the only ones that actually did. Actually, my older brother did, but I think the last election was just me and my mother. I find myself feeling more and more disconnected when we have family gatherings, because things have gotten so political and things have become so polarized, especially with COVID, right? My philosophy with COVID is, you know what, I am still living my life. I'm still going out, and I've done it, and I've had COVID. had COVID for 3 weeks. I ended up in the hospital with COVID, right? However, I met Daniella, I met you at the Beverly Hills Freedom Rally, and there were thousands of people there in a small space every week for the entire summer, right? So as I was, like I say, living my best life, or at least trying my best to, I had a family of people that were feeling exactly the opposite. So it just really causes a lot of tension when you have one way of looking at things and people see things the other way.
Yeah.
I just felt myself being more and more disconnected in family situations.
Yeah. And probably, Joel, what you can relate to, in the Jewish community, you have the liberal Jew and the conservative Jew. And even though we're both Jewish, we can look at politics night and day. And you would think there would be a lot more unity, especially when it comes to things like Israel and
Yeah.
I'm sure in the Black community, not all Black people think the same, and they can get really vocal about it. Yeah.
I don't want to be racist, but whenever I speak to more liberal Jews, and usually those are going to be, Jews that are born and bred here in America. I don't know if it's okay, if it's correct to say the Ashkenazi Jew. I always ask them this question: why are Jews so liberal? I mean, I'm to like the extreme liberal. I don't understand it.
Well, you can
I have a hard time with that. Because I meet a lot of Persian Jews, and they are completely different, completely the opposite point of view. Maybe that's because they have a closer connection to Israel in the Middle East. I don't know. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so answer that question for me, Daniella. Why are you so liberal?
Well, I mean, I think David's a great person. I mean, David, I definitely want to hear your response, but I think it comes from the fact that, the Jews have always aligned with the underdog because we've been persecuted and elided for so many centuries. I mean, we stood with Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement.
True.
We definitely want to see equality being given to everyone because we know firsthand what it means to be gone after simply for our religious beliefs. But there is somewhere along the lines we've kind of separated from each other, and we do see. I feel like there's a cultural Jew and there's a religious Jew, so their connection to Israel is extremely different. And I don't know. What do you think, David?
I'll step a couple different issues. One, the first step is into history of when most of the Jews came to America, where they were on the economic, social world, and where they aligned politically to gain rights. And that was more city-based, not rural, and bigger cities, which tend to be more democratic and more in that theory. I think Israel is a whole different issue altogether as far as people's connections to Israel. I think one of Israel's biggest issues is that anybody, I'm in my 50s, but my age and younger certainly don't have the affiliation. They didn't see Israel deal with the founding of Israel and all the struggles and the grassroots Zionistic movement that really connected Jews to Israel. The older generation, my parents and older, had that incredible connection. The JNF boxes on the counter. It was very much part of living, was that connection to Israel in every home. And that's really moved away over the past 30 years, I would say, as Israel has moved away from a founding nation state to its own. And it's hard to go from the ideal of Israel to the practicality of Israel. And those are two different things. So there's still a strong affiliation with Israel. I think there's a small part that doesn't have a Zionistic movement, but there's always probably been a small part. But I don't think Israel's a polarizing thing. I think it might be more polarizing as a level of importance. But I think I don't see any Jews anti-Israel.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so let's say you are a person that lives in the Middle East, right? And I'll use Israel and Palestine as an example, right? And so you live with the reality of the conflict that happens between Israel and Palestinians, right? Mm-hmm. Like the reality exists that there's terrorism and that people die from this, and this has been happening for quite a long time, right? I think it would make your point of view a little bit more conservative. I mean, I don't know. Even just people in the Middle East that come to America, you know, they come with, if they're religious, they have a certain set of values that just aren't as liberal. I mean, help me with this. I'm thinking through this as I'm talking.
I think I can answer your question.
But yeah.
I think I can answer your question slightly differently. The more religious the Jew, the more orthodox, the more they tend to be Republican.
No.
Yes.
That's what I've seen as
No,
well.
because from where I am in Brooklyn, there are Orthodox Jews and they are Democrats. They
Well,
may
most of
have,
my friends who
they
are
may have
Orthodox-
elected, they may have voted for Trump. That's a different story, but they're still Democrats.
most of the Chabad people I know here, and my wife was very active in Chabad for many years, they all are, without a doubt, Republicans. And it seems to be the much more liberal Jews seem to be much more less religious, more secular in nature.
So, Mark, do you think my problem is I don't know if it's liberal versus conservative or the importance of Israel on your voting.
Well, I was going to say this. If you look at Orthodox Judaism, they are not revisionists to the Torah, much like conservative, reformed are revisionists. Republicans traditionally are not revisionists either, where the Democrats are revisionists. And I think there's some balance there. You know, that's just my opinion. But I have found that most of my religious friends, and we've got a lot of them, they all are devout Republicans.
I agree.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm asking the question, but I feel like you're onto something. That seems to make the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you especially get into Orthodox, that's not a very progressive social world.
No, it's not.
And Joel, also, you know, the Sephardic Jews are more traditional, closer to religion. Persians are pretty religious, even if they don't wear yarmulke. They will all go to a synagogue regularly. They'll pray regularly, be much more connected to the religion. And outside of that, specifically Persian and Sephardic Jews, they come from countries that are totalitarians. And in the same way, the Cuban Latinos that come from Cuba are mostly pro-Trump, mostly right-wing, because they have seen totalitarianism, they've seen censorship, they've seen socialism, and they basically go against it. Same way with a lot of Sephardic Jews and Persians. They come from countries that are totalitarians, that are very...
and Russia too.
And Russia as well. Russian Jews are Ashkenazi, and the vast majority of Russian Jews are Republicans.
That's me.
Absolutely.
I come from Russian.
I said vast majority. I didn't say all.
I will also say that.
By the way, wait, you come from Russia. Were you born in Russia?
No, my grandfather.
I'm talking about Russian Jews, the ones that actually immigrated from Russia, were not born in America. You're second generation.
Yeah, I am too.
I will say, Joel, what is interesting is over time, I think the Jewish vote is around 70. I'll say 75% Democrat, 25% Republican, and even there hasn't been a really good analysis in this past election. But despite Trump very pro-Israel, I don't think the numbers really changed more than 1% or 2%. It's been a very small movement, if any, from historical patterns.
Well, David, the Trump was always surprised, and he mentioned it in some articles and interviews, that how come I'm so pro-Israel, I'm such a great for Israel, and yet the majority of Jews vote Democrat. And the reason for this is that most American Jews that born in America don't have the connection to Israel like the Sephardic Jews and Persian Jews and Russian Jews, who were basically they just don't have that connection. They grew up distant from Israel. They believe that Israel is a conqueror and oppresses the Palestinians, etc. And
Yeah.
just they think that the Democrats are favorable enough, and they want to see the perspective of the Democrats being favorable also to the other side, because they're like the fighters for freedom and justice and etc. And that's why it just doesn't matter for them, the aspect of Israel. They just don't believe that, you know, the Democrats are bad for Israel. And I don't think Democrats are bad for Israel either. I just think that
on the flip side, the liberal, not that I'd go this route, but as much as he was pro-Israel, in the same sentence, he brought up the dual loyalty issue. And hey, if you're voting for Israel, how could you do this? And forced that, I'll say, an anti-Semitic trope that we vote for Israel, we're not Americans. And so there was some pushback on that at the same time. So I mean, that's how it's perceived from the left.
What was that last part? If you vote for Israel, you're not Americans. I never heard that one.
Yeah.
Are you saying that that's implied?
It's been a long anti-Semitic trope that if Jews only care about Israel, they don't care about America. Where they don't care about the country that they're in.
That's
they have a different loyalty.
Like you're saying, that's nonsense.
Well, it's always been. I mean,
but that doesn't have anything to do with Trump, right? That what? They may say that. I'm just trying to find the connection between that and Trump.
Oh, because Trump, he made a comment to that thing saying, "How could you not vote for me? I'm good for Israel," as if that's the only loyalty that a Jew would have.
No, but I think that's
implied.
I'm saying
he's definitely can be surprised that Jewish people don't vote for him because he's good for Israel. It's just implied.
Everything's implied. So, but I'm telling you how people on the far left took that, where very liberal Jews would see that and go, hey, this is the anti-Semitism that I see in him. He's bringing up dual loyalty.
So it's similar to Joe Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Boom!
Boom! It's the same thing, without a doubt.
Actually,
yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but it's a good parallel.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, and I will say there were a lot of things in Trump, things that I won't say were anti-Semitic, but they certainly got very close if you don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of, he had an $88.88 signed baseball on his site. The logo looked very much like a German logo on some stuff. God. There was stars and money. There's just a lot of stuff that if you push it, it's there. People see what they want to see. However, I'll also say at some point you hire somebody to make sure this is looked at before it goes out, because it wasn't a few times. It was a very common thing, and you just put somebody on your staff to clean this shit up.
But I want to respond to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Shirley, and then I want to respond.
I want to respond to that, because in my group, Politically Incorrect, one of the members wanted to post about Trump's T-shirts. There was a T-shirt with the emblem of the eagle, which is symbolic of the Nazi emblem. So I didn't want to post it because for whatever reason, I knew that he wanted to make Trump look bad. I refused to post it. Eventually I fact checked it and I found out that it's, according to the fact checker, I think it was PolitiFact, or I don't remember which one, it was false. It had nothing to do with Trump. And I mentioned it to the guy that wanted to post it in another one of his posts on his personal page. And I told him it was fact checked. It has nothing to do with Trump. So I just feel like a lot of people associate the symbol of the Nazi emblem with Trump's T-shirts or whatever he's selling, but it's not true. It may not be true.
Well, regardless, I mean, actions speak louder than words. And, again, Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem, Trump having Jewish grandchildren, his daughter converted to Orthodox Judaism, Trump saying again and again that Israel is an ally to the US. It shares many of the same values democratically. It's open to all religions. It has women's rights, gay rights. His actions speak volumes to what can be, you know, deduced from, you know, again, people see what they want to see, but how come you're not seeing the actual, how come the actions don't have far more weight than
Yeah.
stuff like that? How the liberal gets stuck on that is beyond me.
But I think, once again,
Sorry.
it's tricky to conflate anti-Semitism with Jewish and Israel. And I think where we say, look, hey, he moved the embassy and his Jewish grandkids are two different worlds. I mean, being anti-Semitic, you could be anti-Semitic and pro-Israel. You could be pro-Israel. I mean, there's variations in there where you could be a Jewish family and not believe in an Israel state. I mean, there's in there, and that's not necessarily anti-Semitic. So I don't think it all rolls in as, hey, he's great for Israel and he's great for the Jews. I don't think those are necessarily, they're aligned, but they're not a perfect alignment.
I think so. Okay, so going back to that, one of the things that actually makes Trump appealing, at least to somebody like me, is that he's not concerned with the minutia of the political correctness, right? So I don't know exactly what you were referring to, but I guess there was something that resembled something that looked like it could be from Nazi Germany or something like that, right? So we get so concerned with so many small things, and you see that all over the place today in America. Like when I was growing up as a kid, the Confederate flag wasn't a bad thing. As a matter of fact, my generation, we grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the General Lee, that was just a badass car, and it had the flag on the top. If you remember that, if you ever watched that show, right?
Yeah.
And then about 10 years ago, suddenly that became a racist symbol, because it wasn't a racist symbol until the social activists came out about 10 years ago and started making a big deal about that. Before, no one cared. You had rock bands that would come out and they'd have that on their jeans or on a shirt, Leonard Skinner. It wasn't considered a racist symbol. It was considered a symbol of the South, and people might have looked at it in a negative way, especially Black people, but it wasn't considered a racist symbol where if you're flying this, you must be some kind of a Nazi, right? And I think one of the things that's appealing about Trump is that he doesn't get caught up in the minutia. I feel like his actions are, you pretty much know where he stands. And yeah, so to me, the actions speak louder than the words. And so for someone to say that he's anti-Semitic, and I'm not saying that you're saying that, but I know that people say that, I don't really see how that's even possible, because I don't see it in his actions.
Well, and also the flip side, you know, Joel, I'm sure you relate to this when you have Black people in your own community saying, but Trump is such a racist. And they find these like skewed examples. But again, if he was so racist, would he have done all the things he did for the African-American community, including, you know, way before with Rosa Parks? And let's not forget all the racist things, purely racist things that Biden has said that get excused away. So I guess the bottom line is, if we focus on the minutia of labeling a candidate and dismissing what they actually stand for by action, not a previous symbol or a misconstrued quote, that is with more integrity, because then you don't get caught up in the emotion and the fear.
I was going to say, one of, I think, Trump's great troubles, or one of his failures, was dealing with nuance. And so Jews, Blacks, whatever group, he loves to talk to a person as if they were a group. And he was very quick to put people into big groups that all should be one way. And it was just his mode of dealing with people in groups, was just to sum them up as a monolithic way on just about any subset.
Well, it's also
Biden, you're not Black.
You know, it's also a fact.
Others don't do it, but I mean,
Trump
but I think once again, with that political uncorrectness that Joe was saying, when Trump goes into AIPAC, I think it was, and says, "You don't care for me because I can't, but you guys have money, I can't buy you." You know, there was whatever he said about money, he'd bring up money when he talks to the Jews. I mean, that's the kind of stuff where he does that. I mean, it's not, does he mean it or does he know it? It's just a bad joke or whatever, but that's where he groups people when stereotypes.
Well, you know, speaking of putting people in groups, I understand how someone could take that the wrong way. I would personally just find that kind of humorous, but I could understand how somebody else take it the wrong way. However, Democrats are like really good at putting people into groups, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one term that I'm offended by: people of color. I am, to me, that is the most offensive term, because it's taking all people, and it's very deceptive too, because when you say people of color, the first thing you think of is blacks, right? So we're going to defund the police, and then we're going to put it in, the communities where there's people of color. That could mean anything, African American, Hispanic, Korean, any person that is not white is a person of color. So, I mean, talk about taking people and lumping them into a group, But I think I guess it's a human thing. It's something that we do. It makes communication easier. I'm not making an excuse for Trump. I'm just saying that I think that's something that both sides do.
Agree.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because Trump says what he means. You don't have to read between the lines. He says it. Now, all the spin doctors on TV, they decide what they think he really means. Every time a politician gets up there, I'm always thinking, okay, what does he really mean when he says that? Trump, you kind of knew what he meant. He was very upfront. We hired him to do a job, which he did very effectively, and people didn't like the way he spoke. Guess what? I'm sure in my company, there's a whole bunch of people who didn't like the way I spoke too.
I also think that part of the problem is the press kind of like cuts and pastes. Instead of saying exactly what he said, they just present you what they want you to think he said, and they leave out the other stuff that
They never get the
explain.
benefit of the doubt. Yes.
But I would be hard pressed to say that's one-sided. Everybody manipulates a quote to make a headline.
They have to make money.
They do, but I feel like with Trump, they took it to an entirely new level of just kind of cutting and pasting. The whole thing, like a perfect example, people always come up to me and say, how can you vote for Trump? He's such a racist. And I'm like, well, what did he say? Well, there's good people on both sides. They took that one and that was just taken so out of context, because in the same breath, he condemns the neo-Nazis, but they take that one quote and make it look like he was validating Nazis.
Yeah,
I will say
directly related to the article that we're supposed to read for this session, how basically the media manipulated the public opinion by taking things and putting them out of context of every single thing Trump did or said.
I think I'll just say whatever side you're on, you feel wronged. And over history, I think that everybody grabs a great soundbite, and they've been doing it they're getting better at it, but to think it's one-sided, watch Fox for a day. It's all taking a snippet and running with it.
But David, wouldn't you agree though that there is a disproportionate amount of left-leaning media coverage that is not comparable to conservative media coverage? And I know we talked about before, but cable news has an agenda. They have an audience to cater to. All cable news needs to focus on ratings. So it's really not a fair assessment. But there does seem to be a disproportionality. Just taking Biden's town hall this morning when he said, we came, what was the direct quote? Like we came into term with no vaccine. And the media is saying, oh, well, that's not really what he meant. They were conceptualizing, oh no, he didn't mean that there was no vaccine. He just meant that there was not a big enough strategy. But you never saw that for Trump.
Yeah, they weren't apologists for Trump, trying, yeah, exactly. They weren't trying to fix what he said to make you feel better about it. They were doing exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll disagree.
I agree with you, only because going back to what I was talking about, Cuomo, it seems to me like now that President Trump is out of the picture,
Yep.
now they're willing to spill the beans about Cuomo. Before they didn't say anything and they blamed Trump for just about anything. And now that Trump is out, they don't need to blame him. So
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
also, and
unfortunately,
little things like the New York Times. New York
Texas.
Times I'm sorry, Mar, I know you want to say something. I'll just finish this really quick.
Sure,
The
go
New
ahead.
York Times retracting the error in their article reporting that a police officer was beaten with a fire extinguisher. That never happened. That police officer went to work the next day and said he just got some pepper spray in his eyes. But they waited after the impeachment trial 1 month later to correct that story. So stuff like that almost never makes it to a mainstream audience, and it just stokes the fire.
Hunter Biden's story was pronounced as doesn't exist, and it's a Russian manipulation throughout the campaign. And right after the election, it came out.
And it was a 3-year ongoing investigation. It wasn't new.
Right.
And you could get banned for posting that story on Facebook. They would censor you, ban you for posting that story as like fake news, false information.
Yep. And that's again a part of the article, because we also saw the collaboration of technology company and big companies manipulating the public opinion. Same thing. Pfizer had the vaccine way before the election, but they only announced it a week after.
Yeah.
Well, everything happened like that week. Oh, wow. Coincidentally, COVID is coming to an end. Vaccine, everything.
And
Yeah.
California is also opening after the inauguration. Even though COVID cases had never been higher, all of a sudden, the economy is opening up in Los Angeles. Following the science.
Yeah, I see. And this is where I go. Correlation is not causation. I don't believe that that this is all conspiracy and it's all rugged together. I mean, I think each one, a lot of things have the effects that are doing it. And if there's documents from Pfizer, go after it. But I think some things are just because things happen and you jump out going, that was wrong. But I don't think it's necessarily the truth.
You don't think there's a correlation, David, between the opening up of Los Angeles and the election being over?
No.
Oh my God, are you serious?
I will say, because I once again, I'm up in Washington, so I'm not as up on California and their phases and their groupings.
You've got Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters was out there saying, we don't want those businesses open until after the election.
Yes,
she was saying that at the beginning of the summer.
Right.
I remember there was someone in the school system also saying we don't want the schools open until after the election. I remember that.
I do remember somebody. I think that was yes. I remember that.
The highest COVID case rate in Los Angeles recorded, and they start opening it up.
But let me ask you, how much do you think that's the election? Or do you think that's Newsom being recalled and the troubles in the state locally?
I think it's the election, because look what happened. New York started to open up right at February 14th, Valentine's Day. You could go now eat in New York, which you couldn't do.
Right.
It's directly a correlation of the election.
The election was in November.
No,
But he didn't take office until January.
Right, but I was going to say, people said after the election, meaning earlier in the summer, that was November, when I was told COVID would be done after the election.
When Joe Biden is seated in office, right? So when Joe Biden becomes the president, now suddenly the Red Sea opens, we can walk through.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember, and I'll find it. I remember saying the day after the election, COVID will be over. I don't remember that was to be when somebody takes off. It was the day after the election. I mean, it's a moot point, but I think there's other considerations. I'm up here in Washington. We've gone up and down. I mean, hey, I've always thought they should have the proper equation of capacity and rates that it's more transparent of how they're making these decisions. Don't get me wrong there. I'm not defending how anybody's locking down, but they've had their criteria and going. I don't think it's a national conspiracy of opening.
But would you agree and acknowledge that the day after the inauguration, CNN took off their COVID counter that was
They
there
didn't.
every day?
No, they did not. I've seen this and I showed people, once again, that's something that went around, but if you turn on CNN, you'll still see it. It did not go down. People, it went around that they turned it down, but it was still there.
But
That,
it
I mean,
was
that
there
was one of those things
24/7,
that,
like it was a fixture.
but it's still up there constantly. I could turn on CNN. I bet you I'll see it. It's not, they didn't take that away. People, somebody wrote that they took it away. And of course, everybody loved that. So everybody wrote about it. I mean, that's where social media goes like wildfire without actual proof. I mean, it's still been there constant. They still have hourly conversations about people dying on CNN. They have not decided to no longer cover COVID. They're doing it almost
No, they're
around the
still
clock.
covering COVID. It just seems at a different dire need than it was.
No, not at all. They constantly talk about deaths and stuff on. You'll see you'll see the counter today.
Yeah, no, I'm
See,
sure
and
they're
that's,
covering it. It's it's a
And nobody dies of
topic.
anything else. What is it, 155 cases of flu? Normally there's 80,000. No heart attacks, no cancer. Everybody's dying of COVID only.
You know what COVID did? COVID not only, well,
You're the flu.
COVID actually got rid of the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID got rid of
well, I mean, once again, these are convenient talking points, but take a look. If you take a look at the CDC data and actually look at the charts, they'll show you how many people have COVID and the flu. They break it down. They have the source data there. As far as the flu going down, people aren't touching each other. I think that's the greatest thing that people are finally, I mean, it took COVID for people to wash hands and not to touch during flu season. So of course the cases are going to be lower. I mean, it's not genius concept to go, if everybody stays away from each other and washes their hands, we're going to have less flu this year. It's not a shock.
But
Well,
down to very few cases.
Yeah.
I'm not
But you'll
sure-
see, but they're testing and you'll see the data of people with COVID and the flu.
I'm not sure I believe the data that CDC puts out either.
Yeah.
Well,
they do it
that's,
all the time.
Okay, so great story. No, it's kind of sad, but it's great. Friend of mine, his daughter is 40. She's a teacher here in Vegas. He is 78. His wife is 79. They all three went for their COVID shots.
Okay.
Two of them, the 40-year-old and the wife, have rashes that starts from their elbow 4 days after the shot to their shoulder. And the doctor said, they went to the doctor when they got the rash. Doctor says, oh, this is a very common issue. Not rare, common. Just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
As a side note on COVID shots this week.
Yeah.
Which company? Pfizer?
They had Moderna.
Moderna.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How
Yeah.
many of you guys are going to take the shot? I know David will.
I'm right.
I'm waiting for the Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah, I
Well, you know,
Well said.
there's a video of Bill Gates, and you can find it. I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube, right?
Mhm.
And he's talking about how they want to vaccinate, every person, around the globe, right? So there's 300 and and I'm sorry, I'm thinking that's in the United States. That's what are there 7 billion, 8 billion people in the world? I'm not sure, right? But they've calculated, according to Bill Gates, they've calculated because they know the vaccines have effects, right? And they affect some people in a negative way. So they've calculated the percentage of people that it's going to negatively affect, right? And he actually gave a percentage, and I forgot what that percentage was, so I don't even want to say the number. But the thing is, they already know that they're going to give this vaccine, and it's going to affect a lot of people in a negative way. And to me, it just, I don't know. It's not worth the risk to me. It's not like, you have to see the video because it's kind of disturbing when you listen to him say, yeah, we've calculated that it's going to adversely affect this many people, as if those people, like, they don't matter. And I'm sure that's probably true for any medication that they put out, but
Bill Gates came out today and said it's probably going to need another.
And just today, I mean, today.
Need another shot. 3 is going to be the number. And it's
Yeah,
going to last
that's
9
true.
months. It's going to last 9 months So every 3 months, you're going to have to get a shot for the rest of your life.
Money, money, money. But let's wrap it up on an amazing note, which we can tie it all together with a bow. Israel is coming out with a cure, which is far better than a vaccine.
Correct.
Leave it to Israel.
You know, a friend of
Kunola,
mine is
making
an
the world a better
immunologist.
place. Yes.
A friend of mine is an immunologist, and he was saying that Israel's cure will never make it because what they do is they ignore it so that nobody buys it. And then, you know, because the companies here in the United States want to make money. So if you're going to have a cure, there's no way to make money. So we'll see. Hopefully, Israel will find a way to get the cure for all of us, but I don't know. I
see it, and enough people will buy it. Maybe not directly, you know.
They'll buy it. What
enough-
people can't do is, the problem with disease is the cure is walking, exercise, and eating right. There's no money to be made on that. There's money to be made in medicine.
Oh, and don't forget
Actually-
sunlight. Don't forget UV. You can get banned
Right.
from Facebook from suggesting that.
Yeah, exactly. You can't make money off the sun. Well, so telling people to go
If
to go
you
outside.
keep your immune system up and you eat healthy, organic, grass-fed, whatever, the probability of you getting COVID is reduced dramatically.
And
Big
take
vitamin.
vitamin D. Yeah.
Actually, I posted a video by a doctor who said the number one thing that could actually make you get COVID is sugar. Stay away from sugar. Of course, do exercise and eat healthy, but sugar is the one that lowers your immunity. And so stay away from sugar.
That's hard on lockdown with 3 kids at home. It's very hard. But yeah, I mean, look, the jury's still out on who's
Bless you.
managing COVID. I mean, the Florida, you know, has never shut down, and they're 27th in the country with cases, not number 1, 2, or 3, like New Jersey, New York, and California are. And California's never ever really been fully opened. You know, but again, it's that's a whole other topic in itself. I think today, though, Joel, it was really great to have you on and have you ask the questions that you did, because there's so much overlap, I feel, with our communities and how we can have a range of different thoughts and have a range of different values and passions that we share. And I hope you come out again. And Shirley, too, I really appreciate hearing how you got involved, that you really wanted to post things that were against the grain, and it was politically incorrect to do so. So you created your own group, which you all should check out. It's on Facebook.
Nice.
Hey, Joel, what's your stuff? You have something you produce online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been dormant for the last 9 months, but I think for the last month I haven't posted. I've taken a break because I've been on the front lines and it's dangerous out there right now. Seriously, but it's called Project America.
Okay.
Project America. The thumbnail is Abraham Lincoln with shades, sunshades.
Oh, where are you located?
So yeah,
You might want to
that's on
change that.
Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.
Hey, Joel, you may want to
Not
change
the Lincoln
that.
Project.
Yeah.
No,
Based on
Project
the
America.
You
Project
might want to
America.
change that because of the Lincoln Project.
I'm good with the Lincoln Project.
Really?
I knew you would
After
be.
all that's
Lincoln
come out?
Project does not exist.
Aren't you one of those, aren't you, Dave, one of those Democrats that drinks adrenochrome or something?
What was that?
Aren't you one of those Democrats that drinks adrenochrome?
Yeah.
You don't know the QAnon thing?
Nah.
No?
Oh,
You don't know our conspiracy theories? You got to know them.
Oh,
I
come
got
on,
my.
you gotta know the QAnon. They
Wait.
say that every Democrat's a pedophile. That's QAnon,
Right.
not me, of course. All Democrats are pedophiles. I think most of them are. No, I'm just kidding. And that they drink the adrenal comb of dead babies that they kill to make them young looking. And they've accused Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. And the comment to one of my friends was, it's not working for them.
I just thought we had the laser.
We have
Yeah.
the Jew laser.
No,
yes.
but the irony is, I don't know if you saw the story, David, was that the founders of the Lincoln Project have a history of pedophilia with underage boys. And so, and that's been known for a while, actually. So it's, I think the founders of the Lincoln Project were, really all Democrats, saying that they were Republicans so they could get on the networks and
I think that's
raise
good.
funds.
No.
Well, what's George Conway?
Exactly. He's pretty Republican.
No, George Conway.
He was. He was.
He's also probably going to come out as a pedophile. I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Still-
but that's the thing. I mean, I forget. We had the woman. I forget her name two sessions ago. But the party is the Republican Party is a quickly evolving party. As far as who, I mean, look at McConnell.
It's definitely reorganizing.
So I mean, you have So you have a lot of people who you would say, is McConnell a Republican? Trump would probably boot him out tomorrow if he could.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he was censured.
Yeah.
And you know that in Kentucky, where he's from, one county is asking him to resign from his leadership role. So it's not even to do with Trump, although.
It's Trump. And to say it's not Trump, it's because he spoke out
people.
against Trump.
It's the people who don't want McConnell anymore because he does not represent their values.
And we're what, 40 days after he got reelected? It didn't suddenly change after 20 years. It's because he spoke out against Trump. I wouldn't hide that it's for any other reason.
First of all, that's very disrespectful to the voters because the voters voted for Trump. And if he's not supporting their candidate, then he's not there for them. That is disrespectful to the voters.
Dave and
he's not there to push his agenda. He's there to
say something
to push their agenda, not his.
He will spear you.
Right.
Yeah.
Harpoon you.
Right.
Kill you.
And to be honest, I don't like that. I mean,
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
I don't
we're
like
talking about right.
Mike Pence under the bus after that guy was so loyal to him.
Then we start by talking about cancel culture.
What about you not being able to get a job because Trump nailed you?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the same as not being
Yeah,
able to get a job.
I mean, I guess in that way it is similar. I just see it's so much more happening on left, right?
Because you worked for Trump, and some people won't hire you because you were against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think David and I will agree on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Concerning Pence, I just want to go back to that because that was one of the hot topics in my group. Pence did not do his job, and the reason for that is because there were dueling sets of ballots from the electors, and what he should have done was he should have asked the state legislatures, why did I receive two sets of ballots?
They did.
Let me know which ones you want to count. And
Joe Biden went through the same thing with Hillary Clinton and Trump, and he stood up there and said, not certified, the results stand.
But there wasn't a senator to support the representative. In other words, there was supposed to be a senator and a representative objecting to those ballots. There wasn't a senator and a representative. There was a representative and there was no senator. I remember what he said.
Right.
He said, is there a senator? No, I can't, I'm denying you this objection.
Shirley, Pence did not even raise the second set of ballots because it was not certified as the law required.
However, the ones that were certified by the governor or the SOS were not chosen by the state legislatures. The governors and the SOSs usurped the powers of the legislatures. That's what the issue was.
It wasn't certified by any authority that has the authority to certify, and thus it was the same exact thing like me and you sending a ballot.
Right.
None of the ballots were kosher from those. In other words, I mean, I could go halfway with you and say they were not kosher whatsoever because they didn't have.
And I hope that we will next time. This is something of a great concern to me, and I believe that there were a lot of problems from illegal implementation of laws or not implementation of laws and all sort of things. But once the ballots were certified and got to Pence's hand, he actually acted like he was supposed to act.
I agree.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Now, the court system did not act properly because they didn't even listen to the proofs, the evidence, not the proofs, the evidence. They did not.
Maybe because the state legislature needed to do their job and they didn't do their job. They were too afraid to.
It has nothing to do with the state legislature, Shirley, because the state legislature has no control whatsoever over the courts.
Do you know what the
state legislature does not have control over the courts, but it does have control over the vote?
Do you know what the one
Certify
great
it.
thing Trump did for America?
Yes,
I think we will all agree.
yes.
Anybody got a guess?
Yes.
I said last time.
Yeah, the turnout was
Democratic House,
now-
Democratic
we
Senate,
are
Democratic
now-
presidents.
Nope.
We are
We
now.
got our whole country to pay attention to politics like they have never paid
Exactly.
attention to it before. We all know more about civics than we've ever learned in high
That's
school
true.
or any other place. My 9-year-old daughter can tell you who Trump and Biden and Kamala Harris are. Yes, she's a Republican. We are brainwashing her. But we have 50 million people in the United States. How many voted, whether you believe the numbers or not? 155
150
million?
million, half the country.
155
But
million.
then again,
Half.
yeah, but
Never
then again, yeah,
Trump made politics engaging again. He made everybody pay attention to it. Whether you voted for whoever you voted, doesn't matter. Everybody's paying attention. And that, I think, will begin to clean up the system of voting fraud, however big or small it is. But I credit Trump with making my 9-year-old pay attention to politics.
So, Mark, 150 million. The question is, how many of those 150 ballots correlate to real people?
how many were dead?
Again, I didn't go there. I didn't go
So
there.
in a sense, what you're saying is that, in a sense, what you're saying is that Trump red-pilled America. But I'll be honest with you, I want that blue pill life. You know, I want to live in a world where I don't have to think about politics. I could just live my life and be happy, you know?
So do I.
When people are so engaged in politics, we just become so divided. I want to live the way we did when America could just be America. And I didn't care whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. It didn't make that much of a difference. And that's something that has changed. I mean, it changed at the beginning of the 2000s. That's when I remember it really changing. Because when I was younger, I didn't care who was the president, but I guess I wasn't as engaged. But I want to go back to that blue pill life.
I think it started between when the Bush-Gore election was in question. I think that's
the first person that I can remember claiming voter fraud was Jimmy Carter.
Wow.
1976.
And I don't think anything was more partisan than Clinton's impeachment.
That was the most ridiculous thing in the world.
I agree. I thought that was a waste of our time and money. Yeah.
I want to
I
add something.
voted for Bill twice.
Yeah, so did I, David.
So did I. I voted for Willie.
I want to add something to what Mark Lipp said. You mentioned that Trump made us all aware of politics, and actually I want to add something else that he has contributed through his loss in this election. Well, quote unquote, it's not really a loss, it's just that there was whatever. So anyway, today there was an article. The title is Republican State Leadership Committee Launches Commission to Restore Public Confidence in Elections. So I don't really know what they're going to do, and I don't know if they're going to be successful, but it definitely, I mean, whatever happened, all these issues with the election has prompted an organization to try to fix the system.
That's great.
Well, you better hope Democrats aren't running it.
No, it's Republicans.
Okay, good.
Yeah, well, it should be
I would-
bipartisan. It should be
I was
bipartisan.
going to say, I don't think either side should really be running. I think those have to be, I mean, they should be bipartisan commissions by nature.
Well, it goes according
Yeah,
to,
you're right.
Mhm.
it goes according to the state. And if the state happens to be Republican, what are you gonna do? You're gonna bring in Democrats from another state to make it bipartisan?
There's no,
I mean-
there's very few states that only have Republicans in it. They could find another side. Every state has
Well,
two
it's
parties.
according to who was elected into that position, you know, so, and listen, don't think that Republicans always vote the Republican way. So they have to go according to the Constitution, and that's what's important.
So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
I tend to believe that local government works better than federal government, but
Yes,
there's
of
something about our
course.
elections where everyone is doing their own thing. Do you think there should be more universality to the way that we conduct our elections? Like, for instance, in California, I can walk into any election place and I can vote without an ID. You know, you could basically, if you own a computer in Zimbabwe and you have an address in Los Angeles, you can register for an election, and as long as the person who receives that ballot doesn't do anything about it, you can walk in there and you can vote. Anyone can vote in California. And if you ask for an ID, that's considered racist because it's voter ID, yet we ID people to go get alcohol.
Right.
So I feel like something needs to be done about our elections.
Of course.
And I know the reason why they want everyone to vote is because that favors one party over the other. However, I just think there needs to be some universality in the way that we conduct our elections, because everyone is doing it their own way.
I mean, it's
So-
funny because this is, I mean, you get to a very Republican versus Democratic, big government, small government, state rights issue in elections. Because, I mean, it used to be that Republicans were very big for state rights, and state rights is that each state can control their election how they want to. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for big election reform, but you have very different rules in different places. Ranked voting, states that
Caucus.
I think it's weird that electoral college is all or nothing, opposed to some states have, by county. I mean, so it's all over the map, but that's state rights.
Well, that has to do probably with the fact that this country is not built upon majority rule. It's really more, because if you have majority rule, the minority will end up losing out on things. They will
That's
not be
why we
recognized
are
for
a
anything.
republic, not a democracy.
Exactly.
We are a republic.
Mhm. Yeah.
A democracy is not what we want. We
No.
want a republic.
You have to be.
Why? I will ask. Wait, why? Why is a democracy bad?
Well,
Democracy doesn't protect the rights of the minority where republics do.
How? I don't see a
That's the
difference.
nature of the beast. And if you want to do it seriously, look it up. It'll tell you that's one of the reasons we have an electoral college.
I'm under the assumption that the majority of the electoral college was big, small states, and state power, and slavery was kind of to the root of where people were. I mean, right now, I think the minorities help because that's where Republicans are in those states. But if those states were Democratic or just had a different bent, I think that could change based on other things. I don't think it's necessarily.
Democracy says
Yeah,
that
when you're
the
Daniella
majority
Zoom,
rules. In a republic, the minority also has rights.
If oh, the picture cut out. Are we still going?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're still
You
going.
have-
Okay, so yeah, so if it was a pure democracy, New York, California, Florida, they can decide that the entire election, and we wouldn't have to worry about the other states. I think a republic allows the small states that seem insignificant to have a voice, and I think that's what he was alluding to with the fact that a republic protects the minority.
I'll ask then, how do you guys feel about DC statehood?
No, I'm not, don't want that.
Why?
It's not the minority of color, or it's the minority of the minority. It can be any minority.
Mhm.
And the republic protects that where democracy doesn't.
Mhm.
to your question, David, No, I don't really feel too positive towards DC being a state. Pretty much, we have to work with the Constitution. We have a great Constitution. We have 50 states.
Constitution has nothing to do with the number of states we have.
No, well, I really wanted to say, if it's not broken, let's not fix it, you know?
But I'll say look, there's more people in DC than Wyoming. It's got more citizens than a number of states. We could say, hey, it's being a state in Puerto Rico for political reasons, but if you take a look, most of the states were added to this country for political reasons. Take a look at what Lincoln did with the Dakotas. That was all for political reasons, why there's 2 Dakotas. So, I mean, I think we have an ideal of the way it should be opposed to the practicality of it.
What about the Supreme Court? What about packing the court?
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm against it, but I'm also okay with Supreme Court reform, tenure and other things. I mean, I think that's the same with government, where we're really being run by a geriatric crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? So is the Democratic Party and Republican Party geriatric crowd.
You know what?
I'm not saying it's one party or not. I think at a certain level, you got to.
I don't know if I would say just because somebody ages, you know, it's kind of like wine. It's like they actually age well. But anyway,
at some
have
point,
a
wine
lot.
turns to vinegar.
Yeah, no, but the truth of the matter
making
is,
decisions.
That's right.
the truth of the matter is that I think that a lot, like even with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was functioning pretty well, I would say. I don't think that she had any dementia or anything like that.
But how many?
No,
that's 1 out of 10.
Well, if you see that somebody is not well and they can't carry out their functions at a certain age, of course, you know, but if they're fine, you know, why throw them out? They have a wealth of knowledge that they could share and they could guide. Why, just because of their age, you know? It's like, do you know that even people that are 40 years old get thrown out of their jobs?
My son made a very good point. He's 26. I have kids of all ages. It's not good. My son made a very interesting point. You don't understand what the 20-year-olds want. They're listening to the AOCs. They're not listening to the Pelosi's and the Mitch McConnells and all the other dinosaurs that run our Congress and Senate. They want the new blood. They want to listen to the young people, the ones of their age and ilk.
I agree. I
The
mean,
problem
it is if you think experience, because they don't have it.
Yeah, that is a problem. That is a problem because for one, they have no life experience. And you know, this summer, I was on the street at all these protests, and it's to the point now where I talk to people, and they're not talking about, these kids aren't talking about democratic socialism. They're flat out talking about communism, and it's speaking proudly about it to me. They're telling, yeah, I'm a communist. And to me, that was just shocking to hear, but it's coming from these kids who are they're really young, and they haven't been properly taught about what it actually is. I was talking to one kid about socialism, and he kind of scoffed at me. He was like, socialism? No, communism. And I was like, wow, we're at that point now? Are you kidding me?
well,
I know that sounds like an extreme example, but that's young people today.
Right. I'll say I will post on where next week what I'll put there. I forget where I found it, where I think it was Cato Institute, where the difference of what different generations think of the word socialism. It has a completely different meaning.
Correct.
To a 20-year-old, to a 60, 40 or 50-year-old. It's the same word, but it means completely opposite things. But it's a good thing. It's a good banner.
Yeah, that's maybe true. But in general, I mean, it is not easy to have a different point of view on college campuses today. And so conservative voices on campuses, there's just no safe space. So you get a lot of passionate young people who are really learning from a one-sided perspective. And so if everyone feels the same way, it feels good to be a part of the consensus, you know. But that is definitely a topic for another discussion, because I'm sure we have a lot to say about that, because the future of our generations is at stake with our youth, especially when we get into anti-racism and critical race theory and ethnic studies now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So
first we have to determine what gender they are.
right, well, and there's that too. There's a lot more options today.
Yeah.
I was filling out my driver's license form and I had 10 different options when it came to gender.
It's very confusing.
Yes, it's very confusing. So
that's discriminatory, because there's actually like 70.
73. There are 73 genders.
There are 73 genders, so I feel like they were discriminating.
yeah, you don't have a safe space. I think you should start a group.
What's the term for us? We're cisgendered,
Yeah.
right? I just want to go back to high school.
You are a
shower in the girls' locker room.
Yeah, you missed
you are a cisgendered boomer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
But let's just wrap up on some common ground. Let's kind of share what we kind of agreed on. You know, taking from what we were talking about earlier, that we should be in an environment again where we can respectfully agree to disagree without making it personal, and that even if it's easy to be responsible for what you say online, because you should be accountable at least to yourself, and things should not get so bad that you're throwing out friendships and family members because of differences of opinion. So is that something we can all agree on?
I can almost
Yes.
agree on that, except
Okay.
I remind my son that he went to college as a Republican voting for Trump, and he came out a dumbass voting for Biden. So I don't know that I'm that nice a guy.
Oh, it's horrible. You know,
Okay.
I always used to think,
Mark, tell him I'm proud of him for learning.
I know. He
Common ground, people. Okay.
knows I'm kidding, sort of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
much for the
but
common
Mark, but
ground.
Yeah, I'm sure you would agree, though, that you would want him to not vilify anyone else, and you want
No.
you wouldn't want anyone vilifying him.
I've actually asked him to join us. He's taking a look at the past few sessions. He
Yeah.
may come join us. He's a very bright 26-year-old degreed dual engineering major, works, as a very good paying job. He's got to take care of daddy.
And he's young. We would love to have him. We would love to have him.
26.
Yeah. So just
So
going
I
back
would
to the
love
common
have a
ground.
Very bright kid.
Yes. And we love to have him. We also agree that there should be a lot more election integrity going forward, since so many more people are voting today, like ever before. It should be a bipartisan issue, that we all feel good about voting and that it's way more secure going forward. Is that also common ground?
Definitely.
Yes. Shirley, Mark, Joel?
of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. See, we finding common ground every week. We are changing the world. We are changing the world one episode at a time. So I thank you. Please tell your friends. We would love to have them. I think this is really valuable, and we've talked a lot about all different topics. And I hope all of you come back next week so we can continue. Okay?
All right, right
I
on.
want to say thank you for having me, and it was fun.
Good. Awesome.
Thanks, Shirley. Thanks for staying up late.
Oh, it was a good time, and it went by fast.
Yes. Amazing. Well, we hope you come back. There's so much more to talk about. And I wish you guys all a safe week, safe and sane week. And let's enjoy the fact that LA opened up a little bit. We can go and sit outdoors again in a restaurant. So